What is happening out there, rotoscouts baseball fans? Welcome to the show, gang. Thursday afternoon, short baseball slate, just 5 games. Nobody seems to care out there about this baseball slate. Tiny little prize pools on both sites. Nobody could really get their act together for this one. Obviously, we've got a killer Thursday night football game that we're going to get back together a little bit later on and talk about. I think that's getting all the attention, all the love from the DFS community, all the prize money, certainly across both DraftKings and FanDuel. So we've just got a lonely little 5-gamer here to talk about. It starts off at 6:40, 6:45, I forget which, but it's in the 6:40 range, 6:45 start time. So just be aware, a little bit of an early start. We're going to be out of here way before that. We're going to kind of breeze through this one. Still got a little bit of catching up left to do in the football notes and everything, getting together for the quarterback show that I want to do. Plan right now for the rest of the day. We're going to knock this out. We're going to talk these 5 games over. I'm going to take some time between that and the probably 6:30 kind of a range where we've been starting the single game shows so far. Probably drop that in right about 6:30 to 7:15, 7:30, somewhere around there. Knock out the single game. We'll look at lineups. We'll look at some sim results. We'll talk about all the different players in that one. Punch out from 7:30-ish, probably for a half hour, maybe a little bit more, or maybe just stay on. I haven't completely decided there yet. But figure we'll tackle after that single game show. We'll do a dive into the main slate. We'll talk some quarterbacks. We'll look at some of the rankings. The rankings and projections are up on the site. We'll talk about some of the best opportunities, the game environments, but we're not going to get into like the player-by-player, the skill players, and all of that. That'll be tomorrow. That's still the plan there. So we'll talk about all the wide receivers, the running backs, and just the overall stacks tomorrow in a hopefully shortened version of our typical marathon show. I'm trying to take like 30% out of it, put it into today. So we'll see how we do there. Obviously, 30% of what we did the other day would be a very long show still. I don't think that's what tonight's going to be. I'm figuring like an hour. We'll probably go like 8 to 9, something like that. And we'll talk during the beginning of that game. We'll watch some of that game together. Maybe I'll go down the street and grab a couple beers, enjoy those while we talk. Who knows? But I figure that'll be the plan for the quarterbacks. But 6:30-ish is probably the start time for the single game show, as we've been doing. But anyway, before we get into all of that stuff, and if I can get things done quickly enough, we'll go maybe a little bit earlier, and we'll try and push that whole schedule forward a little bit. But anyway, before we get into all of that, let's say hi to Cujo for one. Hope you're having a great Thursday too, buddy. Harold Haas is here. Good to see you guys. I expect a fairly lightly attended show. Not only is this a somewhat irrelevant slate, but I also just threw it up there as like a pop-up show, just because I was knocking stuff out and kind of collided with 3 o'clock without really realizing it, and then had to just throw it up on the schedule. So a little bit of short notice for everybody out there. It's an interesting slate. By far, the most experienced pitcher that we're looking at is Frankie Montas. Everybody else on the slate is kind of just a young gun. It's interesting. Got a big debut here. But look at the names. Oh, Nestor. I forgot Nestor was here. Nestor's also a grizzled old vet at this point. Everybody outside of Nestor and Frankie Montas is basically a young gun type or a younger, inexperienced pitcher. So the Marlins at the Nationals. Nats showing a pretty healthy 4.88 total in that one. They definitely look interesting. They're taking on Darren McCucken. McCoggin? It's probably the way that Irish people pronounce names, the way we pronounce names is probably McCaughan or something like that. McCaughan. Anyway, he doesn't have much experience. He's 28, but hasn't pitched much in this show. We're looking at 35-ish innings in the show over the last couple of years. Not a lot of meat on the bone there. Seems pretty realistic to expect some upside out of the Nationals bats. Joey Gallo is back in the projected lineup for the Nats. We love Joey Gallo's bat whenever he's available, so we'll talk about him when we get there if he's in the lineup. 3.71, typically low total on the Marlins side. They're going to be facing Mitchell Parker, who's been up and down throughout the season, but has had some very capable starts, so we'll give him a look on the board, but in a run of not the best starts in a row, if we're talking about recent form. So, not that the Marlins are intimidating, not that that's going to push us toward Marlins bats in anything other than a contrarian sense. Big series in the Bronx, the Red Sox and the Yankees. I unfortunately will not be in attendance on Saturday. I've already mentioned my alternate plans, and that's okay. But I'll be missing a Red Sox-Yankees game. I actually was happy I was able to give my tickets to my buddy Charlie's wife. She's a big Red Sox fan, and their son Simon is like just getting into baseball. So I figured it was cool to, it would be fun to give them the tickets. So she's going to take him on Saturday. I don't love giving my tickets to a Red Sox fan, but it'll be funny because the people behind me are gigantic Yankee fans, and I talk to them. So one, they'll think that Jen's just stealing my seats, and two, they'll realize that she's a Red Sox fan pretty quickly, and that'll be funny. Anyway, Sox 389 total, 390 total against Nestor, and then the Yankees pretty beefy looking at 5.22 to lead the slate against Cooper Criswell. We have the Yankees lineup. It looks like a better version of it. Jason Dominguez is in it. I don't think Verdugo is in it. I'll double check that when we get there. The Yanks look really appealing. Obviously, they've been a little bit up and down lately, but we know what the ceiling, what the upside looks like, and the ballpark is definitely helpful for offense. That said, a lot of really good lefties in that Red Sox lineup. We'll see what they confirm against the lefty Nestor Cortes, but there's just a lot of good home run hitters and a lot of guys who hit the ball really hard in that Red Sox lineup anyway. Nestor is good, not great. They might not be getting quite enough love there. Part of that is their perceived struggles against left-handed pitching. And we've talked about that through the year in terms of a lot of their platoon-based righties, and Tyler O'Neill are actually outstanding against lefties. It's just a diminishment for two of their key hitters, Jarren Duran and Rafi Devers primarily, and then you lose like the Willie Abreu's, you lose a little bit from Yoshida. But we'll give it a look. Rays and the Guardians, 7.5 run total in that one. That is a matchup between Ryan Pepio and Gavin Williams, two very talented young pitchers. Should be a good pitching duel. They're relatively low totals on both sides. Guardians definitely look like one of the more appealing stacks, though, because they're at a 4-1-1, and everybody else outside of these top two home teams up here is in the threes. So it actually puts the Guardians on the board a little bit. We know how good that team is. They're showing a little bit of power upside against Pepio, but wouldn't surprise at all if Pepio went out, had a great start against them, kept them to just a couple of runs, and Vegas came through here or came in high. And Gav is just as good on the other side with strikeout upside against the Rays. Rangers against the Mariners. Love Bryce Miller on the hill, even against a pretty up and down Rangers team that, as I keep on saying, is better man for man, I think, than it is collectively this season. Miller's not entirely safe, but he is very, very good, so should be decent upside for him. And then the debut of Kumar Rocker, the first player ever in the major leagues of Indian heritage, which is pretty cool. He's a top 100, borderline top 100 prospect. He was a third overall pick a couple years ago in 2022. Monster signing bonus. 8th ranked organizationally per Graph's numbers. You can go back and forth with that. It goes up and down with different spots. Decent numbers in the minors, decent strikeout numbers, and fairly low walk rates. So somebody at least worth looking at against a Mariners team that we've targeted throughout the season that we know has some strikeout upside in it. Both of those teams coming in at low totals. 3.27 for Texas is very targetable. And then just a 3.80 for the Mariners against the rookie making his debut clearly speaks to his talent a little bit. Frankie Montas, I mentioned him before, one of the only two veterans on the entire slate. Montas is okay. He can give you good starts from time to time. He can give you average starts or mediocre starts a lot of the time. Hasn't gotten completely destroyed at all really this year, but he's got several. His worst game is a 7-run game. I'll call that destroyed. 4 2/3 against the Nats, 7 runs allowed. A number in here of 4 and 5-run games, though. Like, there is a pretty decent downside to Frankie Montas. That Giants team can hit a little bit, but there is strikeout upside. So mix and match caliber, 3.61 implied total for the Giants, and then 3.98 implied total coming back the other way for the Brewers, which is a pretty decent lineup, and technically that is the 4th highest total on this slate, so maybe they're a little bit targetable against kind of a scuffling version of Hayden Birdsong, who is a kid I think has talent. He's got at least one excellent pitch, but really hasn't been able to put it together in full in the show outside of a couple big strikeouts games against Colorado. So it seems maybe a little bit more targetable with the Brewers at the end of the night than the Vegas total might suggest, just given the nature of this slate. But it kind of does lean pitching overall, outside of the couple of obvious bat spots. That's what the board looks like. Being a veteran doesn't really do all that much for Frankie Montas. Nestor gets a little bit more out of it. But the top 3 guys, 3 of those young guns. And again, Bryce Miller, basically proven at this point, it's more, if you stitch this season into last season, it's more than a full season put together, and he's been excellent. 10-3, 9-2 with Texas as low end as they are, still missing Corey Seager, struggling up and down the lineup, and just pulling such a low total. Gotta like Miller at the top for the price. Pepio's realistic. At 85, 83, it's probably priced in that Cleveland is that low strikeout and a very good team that they are. That's not a terrible price to find Pepio. He's pretty good. Gav Williams on the other side of that, though, at 75, 74 is a bargain given his strikeout potential against that Rays team. That's a key value option. He's going to be super popular for sure on both slates, but deservedly so. Projects out pretty well here and comparable to the top guys on the slate. Not much daylight. That's less than a strikeout between him and the top guy. Nestor just really threatened by Boston again. Even with their struggles for some of their key bats from the left side against fellow lefties, a couple of them are diminished but not completely terrible. They're two best guys. And then the righties and the platoon guys are actually very good. So Nestor's not at all safe. 92, 8,000. He's decent for the money, but it's a really challenging spot against the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium. It's another nice day here in the New York area, so going to support bats in that one, I think, on both sides. Mitchell Parker, I definitely believe in the upside against Miami, 8,100 and especially at 6,800 on DraftKings. That's an interesting decision between him and, for a little bit more money, Gavin Williams against Tampa Bay. I think either way with those guys you can succeed. Montas can definitely give you a good start for the money at 81.79 against San Francisco. A lot of Ks in that lineup. Those aren't bad prices. But again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of earned run downside with Montas. Even if he doesn't explode, 4 or 5 runs against it is a pretty common result. Birdsong's cheap. There is potential there, but I don't love targeting that Milwaukee lineup throughout the year. And just with his struggles and his inconsistency and inability to really put it together, I don't love it. I hadn't noticed that Kumar Rocker costs 9,000, 8,500 across sites. That's really challenging. It's a great spot to make his debut. He is a strikeout pitcher. He's fairly low walk. Should be a good fit against that Seattle team, but he's the third highest pitcher on the FanDuel slate. He's the second highest on the DraftKings slate in his major league debut. That's weird. Cooper Criswell against the Yankees is a pretty firm no. Everybody can beat the Yankees on the right day. They tend to lose to mediocre pitching more often than they lose to good pitching, it seems like. So Criswell's on the board for a little bit of value, just given how cheap he is, and that there are some Ks in that Yankees lineup, but it's really not a good spot. Yanks' biggest total on the board. Obviously, some tremendous bats in that lineup. And then I have no idea what to expect out of Mr. McGuckin at the bottom of the lineup. 64.55 makes him really cheap. Projects out pretty low. See if we can get a better read on him when we get to that game, which I believe is the first game. Indeed it is. So we'll talk about him right now. So, stretch this out. Debuted in the majors. I should have grabbed the full stat board with his minor league numbers in it. Hold on. Let me pull up graphs. So he's been around since 2017, started in the Seattle system, kicked around to Cleveland and Miami this year. Worked his way up to the show with Seattle in 2021 as a 25-year-old, but only made 2 appearances, 1 start, pitched 9 innings, 8.0 ERA with a 6.55 xFIP. Nothing to write home about there. Significant samples are mostly in AAA. 28 starts, 154 and a third in 2022 with Seattle. He had a 4.55 ERA with a 5.22 xFIP. He had a 22% strikeout rate with a 6.5% walk rate. So at best, he seems like an average pitcher. Next year, he had a 21.2% strikeout, 7.2% walk over 139 innings in 25 starts. That was last year in AAA. 5.83 ERA with a 5.65 xFIP. Mid ones or higher home run per 9 throughout those stops. So I think the power that we're seeing here on the Nats side, pretty realistic. In the show this year, 2 starts, 24 and a third. He's also pitched a little bit in bulk relief. Last time out, he faced the Phillies, went 4 2/3. He gave up 2 earned runs, 6 hits, struck out 4. I mean, not even being able to complete the 5th inning, giving up the runs, the hits, it's not ideal. even at 55. 4 innings to start before that. That was a full start as well. 4 innings, 5 hits, 4 runs, 3 of them earned, 2 strikeouts, a walk, a home run allowed. Couple outings in August in relief. Couple 4-inning performances, couple of runs in each one of those, low strikeout. It really seems pretty thin. His first outing of the year was back in May. He gave up 3 home runs to the A's. 8 runs in 4 2/3. Seems just more like a target for Nationals bats. They've got the second highest total on the board. They've got some interesting hitters in this lineup now. They've got some power. They've got some, old friends like Joey Gallo at very fair prices. So I'm much more enthusiastic about just grabbing some Nats against what seems like a pretty easily targetable pitcher. Nats are relatively low strikeout anyway, even with Joey Gallo's 39.5 in there at the bottom of the lineup. That projected version is at 21.8%. Doesn't seem like a great target for a bad to mediocre pitcher. On the other side, Mitch Parker, though, 6,800, 8,100, 21% Ks this year, 4.43 ERA with a 4.17 xFIP, 6.7% walk rate over 136 in 26 starts. Not bad for a young lefty, just getting himself going in the show. As just a kind of non-heralded young pitcher, those are pretty decent numbers. Nats will take that from them all day. 10.1% swinging. The 25% CSW needs to come up a little bit and probably can over time. It's just borderline in terms of the premium contact. The launch angles are very, very much a fly ball trajectory. Probably a little bit of luck to be under 3% home runs, but still not tragic in terms of the home run numbers allowed this season. As I mentioned, though, he's had some bumps recently as we're getting toward the end of the year. Maybe a little bit of wear and tear building up. Last time out, 4 earned runs, just went 3 1/3 against the Pirates. Struck out 5, but walked 4 in that one. 6 hits allowed. The start before that against the Cubs on the first. Went 6 innings, but allowed 4 runs, 3 earned on 7 hits. Struck out 8, walked 1. Mixed bag of a start there. 2 earned runs, 5 hits, just went 4 innings against the Yanks on the 26. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks, and a home run allowed. Solid 7-inning start, but it was against the Rockies back on August 21st, struck out 6, just 1 run on 5 hits. The one before that I wanted to work back to was 9 runs against Philadelphia. That was his worst start of the year. At Philly, 9 runs on 10 hits, just went 3 innings, 2 home runs allowed, 6 strikeouts. Obviously, you're not getting similar upside from the Marlins that you are the Phillies most days, so I think he's pretty safe. I think he's got some talent, and there is some strikeout upside for him for sure. This confirmed version of the Marlins lineup, 24.4% strikeout rate on the season. Not bad at all. You've got a couple of guys here in the 30s. Christian Pache, a fairly non-threatening hitter anyway. David Hensley, not offering a ton of upside. 32% strikeouts for him, 35.9 here. Kyle Stowers, between the 3 of them, probably has the best power upside. You can see what the premium contact numbers look like for Stowers, but lefty-lefty, I'm going to guess that diminishes. We don't have a huge sample to work with. Stowers for his career, same-handed, is a 176, 300, 324 hitter with a 147 ISO and an 83 WRC plus over 40 plate appearances. Not that he's particularly good against right-handed pitching either, over 260, but he's a little bit more respectable than that. So, non-threatening trio of 30% strikeout hitters right there for him to work with. You've got a 30% strikeout rate on Norby, who is a threatening hitter. He is very good. 4,200 at third base for Norby is pretty cheap for a guy with a 13% barrel rate, 8 home runs and 118 plate appearances, a 283 ISO and a 130 WRC plus. He kind of came roaring out of the gate in the opportunities, but he is striking out a lot, so maybe Parker picks up a little bit there. Going to be a tough hitter to get through, as is Jake Berger. Everybody else in the lineup, though, there's no real downside. So I definitely think you can roll some Mitch Parker at 6,800 in particular on DraftKings. Fire away with value shares there. That's a tremendous spot. 8,100 on FanDuel, same thing. I like it as a mid-range option. And thinking about the board, you could argue that 81 for Parker against Miami is better than 75 for Gav against Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is a better lineup between the two. It's close. Gav projects a little bit better, but again, this is a strikeout difference, less. A little bit more stark for 600 difference. No, same salary difference. So those are close. 2 very good options in the SP2 bucket, though. If you're going to the rest of that Marlins lineup, as I mentioned, Norby at the top is very cheap on DK at 42 at third base. 3,400 at second base is perfectly playable on FanDuel, and you can use him to attack what will probably be a fairly popular Mitchell Parker here. He's shown a ton of power. It's just the rest of this lineup leaves a lot to be desired. Jake Berger's decent. He's hit 25 home runs. That kind of came in a rush. He was having a bad season. Then like a month and a half of like super high quality, and now feel like we haven't had much movement in the last couple of weeks. 205 ISO, 102 WRC plus. Stabilized his numbers, but still, we're hovering around the mediocre season. Not as good as he was last year. 12.4% barrels and 47.5% hard hits, though. The contact from the right side is still extreme, but also nearly a 26% strikeout rate. Last year, nearly a 28%. Jonah Bride in between those two hitters is cheap at 35.25. He's hit 6 home runs. He's got an okay slash line. He does have a solid 356 on base. By far the best on base option out of this team, over 202 plate appearances. Creating runs 12% better than average. One of 3 guys in this lineup that are above average run creators. Otto Lopez entirely skippable. He's cheap at multi-position. 4 home runs, 16 stolen bases despite being a 299 on base option. 80 WRC plus for the season. And he's hitting cleanup today. Good decision. Pache, Stowers, and Hensley entirely skippable high strikeout guys that don't really give you all that much, and particularly Stowers against the lefty. If it was a righty on the mound, we could talk about him. Nick Fortes, Javier Sanoa at the bottom of the lineup look pretty skippable. Fortes we know is skippable. Sanoa I don't really know. Sanoa, 6 home runs and 14 steals, 291, 354, 431. With a 140 ISO and a 104 WRC plus over 492 plate appearances as a 21-year-old in AAA. Probably here a little bit early, but it's the Marlins, so whatever. Maybe you could mix and match your way to a couple shares of the kid if you're building out like a ton of Marlins stacks for some reason, but seems pretty like a pretty low-end option. The Nats are where you want to be if you're stacking from this game. They're probably going to get a little popular against this pitcher on a short slate. Oh, perfect. We just got their lineup. Grab this. We'll see who's in it. So just with the limited pitcher on the other side, and with some quality bats in this lineup in general now. Hey, Joey Gallo's in there. With some quality bats in this lineup now, they're kind of interesting, and they're showing a ton of power upside in the model. You've got 3 guys above the magic number. You've got Kiebert just below the magic number. Luis Garcia is hovering around it. Joey even in the 8 spot. You can't keep Joey off the board. 8.46 in the home run model. There's upside in going to some cheap Nats today. I like the option. CJ in the top spot was actually the home run pick of the day at 13.01. He's hit 20 this year in 582 plate appearances. He's stolen 28 bases. 187 ISO, 103 WRC plus. It's not been as tremendous a season as I think we were maybe expecting, but the counting stats have been there. The average and the on base are a little bit disappointing. The ISO and the WRC plus ultimately a little bit underwhelming, but the player is talented and he's at worst a fair price. This is a little bit higher than I would really like it, but considering that you're pairing it with all these cheap guys, it doesn't really matter. And pitching is affordable today, so should be easy enough to get to. FanDuel 3,300, no problem. James Wood 53-34, tons of talent there. Over 264 rookie plate appearances. He's only slashing 277, 367, 416. Monster on base options so far. He's stolen 12 bags in a limited sample of plate appearances. Getting on like crazy. He's got power. He's hit 5 home runs. And look at the premium contact numbers. 9.7% barrels, 51.9% hard hits against a guy who's going to give it up. Gotta like the option for James Wood. This ISO is way low for that kind of contact. This is going to skyrocket, I promise. 122 WRC plus. Kiebert is always great for bat on ball. He's a cheap catcher option at 41, hitting third today. Switch hitter. 10.9% strikeouts this year, 10.3 last year, 3.5% walks. So what does that mean? Ball's in play. They're not particularly well struck with Kiebert. Last year was 5.8% barrels at least. This year down to 3.6. He's in the mid-20s for hard hit rate. He has managed to hit 13 home runs. He hit 17 last year? 18 last year. Damn it, I knew that. I hedged. Last second I said 17. He's at 13 this year. It's not been the same power output, but just buying cheap bat on ball at the catcher spot is never a bad idea on DK for such a low price. 4,100 puts him in play, and against this pitcher, we definitely see upside. I like him as the third man in behind the top two hitters in a three-man. I like him as a key part of a five-man. He helps offset price. He's not going to be probably the most popular catcher on the slate, so I like the upside for Keeper. Chaparro's been mashing 4 home runs and 101 plate appearances, a 239 ISO, 123 WRC plus, hitting in a key spot in the lineup. Right-handed hitter at first base for just 3,200, 2,700, reasonable upside option for him. Jose Tena, a lefty at third base, 2,900, 2,400. He's shortstop eligible on FanDuel, which is interesting, but you're not skipping C.J. Abrams for him, really. 2,400 is a nice discount. He's got 2 home runs and 3 steals, decent profile, 310, 343, 410. Creating runs 12% better than average in the small sample. Totally playable at worst at a very fair price, 5.26 in the home run model. Chaparro, by the way, at 10.56. James Wood at 10.04. So you can see the power upside for those two players. In that group, really only Wood is high strikeout at 29.2%. Even Tena at 23.8 over 105 plate appearances, not bad. Then you got Luis Garcia, who's low strikeout. Dylan Cruz, who's been low strikeout so far. Garcia we've had for a long time, but he's having one of his better years. 284, 322, 443, creating runs 12% better than average, 15 homers, 21 steals. It's a very solid season out of Luis Garcia. Dylan Cruz, super high-end prospect. Second pick in the Paul Skeens draft. 4,800, 3,100, 222, 295, 444 out of the gate. Not exactly impressive numbers, but has hit 3 home runs, stolen 5 bases in 61 opportunities, and he's putting bat on ball while also drawing walks. He's putting good bat on ball, too. 11.4% barrels, 40.9% hard hits. Dylan Cruz is interesting. And then my guy down here, 2,800 for Joey. 13.4% barrels, 44.3% hard hits in a limited sample of 215 pretty bad plate appearances this year. Striking out 39.5% of the time. That is down from 42.8%. The walks are a point down from last year as well. Last year he was crushing the ball a little bit more. Year before, same thing. He's typically in that higher teens barrel rate range, mid-50s hard hit range. So we've been diminished a little bit in terms of the power output, but he's also had irregular plate appearances and injuries throughout the year. 6 home runs in his opportunities, a 149 ISO. It is underwhelming numbers. I get it. Last year he hit 21 home runs in just 332 chances. Ignore the batting average with Joey Gallo. And at this point, we have to kind of ignore the on-base percentages as well because he doesn't really do that as well as he used to either. But he does still have prodigious power upside. Again, 21 home runs is not a bad total in 332 opportunities last year. And look at the ISO, 262 ISO. Year before, 197 ISO, 19 homers and 410. That was a mixed bag of a year. He missed some opportunities. Wasn't great, but was absolutely capitalizing on what he does well, which is just make outstanding contact at the plate. So in terms of a one-game opportunity against a low-end right-handed pitcher who's going to be tossing it in there for him, I love the upside for Joey Gallo at the bottom of the lineup in any given slate situation where people aren't going to be rostering him. He's nobody's favorite player but mine, so I'll be excited to grab him. He'll definitely be in my lineup if I go to the Nats, and some other people will have him, and he'll probably strike out 4 times and give me a 0, and that's okay because I still love Joey Gallo. Jacob Young, 31-26, 31 steals on the season, a 315 on base, 86 WRC plus. In truth, these guys down here are kind of mix and match quality options. Young, not an ideal wraparound because he doesn't get on base all that much, and he's not a positive run creator, but he's at least okay down there. Joey, you're just trying to pick off the one good piece of contact that results in a home run, hopefully. But really, the top 7 is pretty high quality. And again, at worst, a couple cheap mix and match options down there. Nationals bats, Mitchell Parker, and then really nothing from the Marlins, but you can get away with some Marlins stacks because Parker's no guarantee. So Marlins bats way above their pitcher. Red Sox lineup is kind of key because of all the lefty thing. Let's see. Give me a lineup, Sox. Nope. So Nestor, I still continue to think Nestor's a better real-life pitcher overall than a DFS pitcher. 3.97 ERA with a 4.23 xFIP, an average-ish kind of a strikeout rate at 22.1%. Doesn't really walk anybody. 5% walks is good, but does give up premium contact, which I'm concerned about against this hard-hitting Sox team. 8.1% barrels on a 22.8 degree launch angle in Yankee Stadium can definitely result in some home runs. 43.6% hard hits, 89.7 miles an hour of exit velo. So we are way over the line for the hard hit rate that we're looking for on an extreme fly ball trajectory typically. And this is borderline on the exit velo. 3.45 home run rate could easily be above 4 this season. Borderline by stuff plus. The ERA hovering around 4, the xFIP a little bit above 4. This is probably the true number. Okay, but not outstanding swinging strike rate and not really a great strike thrower. Does a lot with timing, delivery mechanisms, mixing up the stuff, the release point, and keeping hitters off their toes. And he's effective with that. I don't want to imply that he's not. But for DFS ceiling, it comes and goes pretty quickly. Last time out, just 4 1/3. That was against Chicago. I forget what happened there. He struck out 3, walked 1. Oh, that was a relief appearance. That's right. They put him into a relief role over the weekend. And had him pitch 4 1/3 in bulk relief behind, I forget who the opener was. But now back to a true start. Start before that, he gave up 5 earned runs in a true start to St. Louis, just 4 innings, 2 strikeouts. Game before that, he was okay, 6 2/3, 1 run ball, 4 hits against the Nationals, 5 strikeouts, 2 walks. 4 strikeouts, no walks, no runs on 3 hits over 7 against Cleveland is a decent start there. And then a really good one, but it came against the White Sox, 9 strikeouts, 7 shutout innings, 3 hits. So good against bad teams. Has kind of had some bumpy spots against good teams. Some bumpy spots against mediocre teams. Last time he faced the Red Sox at Fenway, 4 2/3, gave up 4 on 9 hits, struck out 5, walked 2. Last time he faced the Red Sox in Yankee Stadium, he went 6, 8 strikeouts, home run allowed, but just 1 run on 3 hits. None of that is predictive in terms of the last 2 times he faced this team, just, reference points. I think there's downside for sure. Again, though, Duran Endeavor's diminished against lefties, but Ref Snyder's been outstanding against lefties this season, and he's very cheap. He's gotten most of his power, a solid handful of his home runs, well over half of his home runs in the split. Tyler O'Neill has been an absolute monster this season against left-handed pitching. His ISO's well above 300 in the split. A big chunk of his home runs have come on this side of platoon splits. The WRC plus is tremendous. I didn't pull up the board because I don't want to go through each and every guy's numbers. But the one I want to highlight after the 2 obvious guys, because everybody knows Ref Snyder. O'Neill's just super obvious because he's great against everybody anyway. 30 home runs on the season at 288 ISO against just everybody. 5,500, 3,500, pretty well priced as well. But Romy Gonzalez at 3,300 second base and third base eligible. 4 positions on FanDuel for 2,600. Overall, over 183 plate appearances, slashing 281, 328, 425. 4 home runs, 10 steals. Most of his quality has come against left-handed pitching. I'll pull him up real quick. So while everybody's going to make sure that they've got Ref Snyder, against lefties this season, 114 of those 100 and whatever plate appearances, all 4 of the home runs, and he's slashing 310, 377, 500 with a 190 ISO and a 141 WRC plus. Again, it is moderate sample. It's not crazy, but that's a really good sample of plate appearances against lefties. For the career, we had another handful of plate appearances. It gets up to 198. 6 home runs, so he's hit 2 additional home runs in a handful of additional plate appearances. 181 ISO, 117 WRC plus, 286, 328, 467 slash line. Even that is not a full season or a full sample, but at least it's something. And he goes underappreciated in these situations where they're against lefties, and he's very cheap in the heart of the lineup, or at least the projected lineup. Connor Wong brings a lot of upside from the right side of the plate to the catcher position. 3,900, 2,900, 13 home runs on the year. A very solid slash line, a 113 WRC plus. Been a big contributor for this team. Trevor Story from the right side against Nestor. I see upside. 3,700, 2,500 for who this player once was. And I've said it throughout the week since he's come back. A lot of what he once was might have come from Coors Field, but there is still talent there. There is still a lot of numbers and some production away from Coors Field over time. So I'm still a buyer on Trevor Story as long as he's this cheap. Danny Jansen's an option if he's also in the lineup. They might want to get the double right-handed bats in there and have 1 DH and 1 catch. There's upside there. Or play first base with no Tristan Casas in the lineup if they go that route. So there's upside there for sure. Danny Jansen has a little bit of power from the right side. Just 29.6% hard hits this year. That's down from 36.9 last year and 46.6 the year before in a smaller sample. 6.8% barrels. It's kind of a disappointing year for Jansen over 300 plate appearances. 8 home runs, a 143 ISO. Mediocre, but playable. Sedan Rafaela continues to contribute in weird ways that defy WRC+, and despite having just a 281 on base, he got involved again last night. 15 home runs, 17 steals. He's not uninteresting at the bottom of the lineup, and he's very cheap, fills multiple positions on both sites. And then, again, you don't necessarily skip Jarren Duran and Rafi Devers just because there's a lefty on the mound. I don't know what they're, and I wouldn't want to look of what they've done against Nestor in their careers, but those are two very capable hitters, and you just consider them in any given slate option for upside in this situation where, all right, they had a good day against lefties where sometimes they're diminished. If we pull up like Duran this year, overall has been completely outstanding and indisputably better against righties. He's got a 931 OPS against righties. Against lefties, it's 682. But that represents a 260, 322, 359 slash line. He's not the power bat that he is against righties by any means. 276 ISO against righties. 90 WRC plus versus a 153 reflects the difference in quality. He's been 10% worse than average creating runs against same-handed pitching. But the average is okay. The on base is at least playable and not tragic. It's not a hole in your lineup. There's a lot of guys in the league that have that on base. Just that's what they do. He's hit 4 of his 21 home runs. He's got a triple on the board against the lefty. He's hit 5 doubles against the lefty. Most of the power evaporates in the doubles department in the 212 plate appearances. Against righties, he's got 39 doubles in 451 plate appearances versus just 5 against lefties in 212. That's what we lose a lot of is that. He strikes out a little bit more against lefties, 24.5 versus 20.4, but he's entirely playable here. It's not like he's just scratched and off the board. He just becomes expensive for the spot, but you can average that down because you're getting Raf Snyder, you're getting Romy Gonzalez in the lineup. And it's the same thing for Rafi Devers, who we've all seen succeed against left-handed pitching. For Rafi's season, he's also hit 4 of his home runs against lefties, 24 against righties. Slashing 247, 307, 397 with a 149 ISO. That's not Rafi Devers. 92 WRC plus. 326 ISO and a 167 WRC plus against righties. But again, not completely incapable. Just doesn't look exactly like himself. If you look at the career, it's slightly better. He's a career 266, 321, 421 hitter with a 155 ISO and 98 WRC plus against lefties. So he's only 2 points below average for his career. Again, that is Rafi Devers, so that's a dramatic fact that he's below average against lefties. But it's only 2 percentage points. And he's got a respectable average. You can put the ball in play. He's just not the power bat that he is against righties. So either one of those guys is an expensive and flawed investment in this spot. It does make some of the other guys a little bit more appealing. But considering that you're averaging those prices down, again, with those other guys, you're perfectly fine to play them, and I don't think you want to skip them. I think the Red Sox are potentially a little bit underrated in this spot. On the Yanks side, it is the good version of this Yankees lineup. Hopefully they realize that and continue to roll it out. Austin Wells back into the cleanup spot with a righty on the mound. It's Cooper Criswell pitching for the Red Sox. Criswell lands with a 16.9% strikeout rate with a 6.9% walk rate. 4.11 ERA with a 4.37 xFIP. He's been okay, but he's not a strikeout pitcher. He's a pitch-to-contact kind of a guy. He's been good at inducing weak and medium. He's been good at inducing ground balls, but this Yankees lineup can be a different story when it comes to that department. They can get down there and elevate with the best of them. So there is still home run upside. You can see both Judgy and Soto are above the magic number and basically can't suppress them below it at this point. Stanton just below at 9.37, but he does slip below. Jason Dominguez at 9.11. So some home run upside, some believability there. Some key lefty bats in that Yankees lineup are always going to be interesting in Yankee Stadium against a weak righty. So love the upside. They're the highest projected team on the board in terms of implied runs. Highest overall projected team on the board in terms of fantasy projections. One of the higher power marks of the day. I think they're going to be obvious. I think they're going to be popular, but you can easily get there. Brent Rooker home run. What an outstanding season. $3,800, $2,900 for Glaber, 328 on base, 98 WRC plus. I'd love to see that WRC plus get over 100, get to 15 home runs, get this into the 330s by the end of the year, and bring him back and hope that he does it over. That he improves across the board. I want to see Glaber stick on this team. I like Glaber Torres. I think it would be a mistake to let him go. He's still young, but I think he played his way off this team, unfortunately, this year. You still go to him in stacks, though, because he's cheap. He fills second base, and he hits ahead of Soto and Judge, so you just plug him in. Soto, 64-45, 39 home runs, 291 ISO, 180 WRC plus. A bomb last night after it looked like he was going to be lost for a while after fouling a ball off of his foot. Aaron Judge, 68-49, still mired in a bit of a slump. We're at 324-54, 686 though, so he can afford it. 51 home runs. It's been a minute on the home runs. 366 ISO, 211 WRC plus. You just keep firing with Judge until you get the results that you want. 44-29 for Wells is a great price. 13 home runs on the season, a 184 ISO, 120 WRC plus. Having an outstanding season and maybe not getting the credit that he deserves. 9.5% barrels, 40.1% hard hits. Should be more in the mix for the Rookie of the Year discussion, honestly. Giancarlo Stanton, 4,800, 3,100, 25 homers in 411 plate appearances, continues to crush the ball. We're back up to 20+% barrels, to 53.8% hard hits. To have three guys in the lineup over 20% barrels is insane. The fact that they're all above 53.8% or higher hard hits to go with that, the home run ratios to plate appearances are ridiculous. These guys are outstanding home run bats. Stanton is always in play for shares. It's just become a little bit more challenging because sometimes you want to drop Jazz into the outfield on FanDuel. You've also got Jason Dominguez there in addition to Soto and Judge up at the top. So there's many outfield options on this Yankees lineup. It depends on how you stack them up. On DraftKings, it's more straightforward without the multi-position on Jazz. He just fits in at third base, so it matters less. You've only got 4 outfielders to work with there, but you've got 4, so you've got to make a choice if you want to fill up on premium outfield bats from the Yankees. For 54-35, Jazz is really interesting. Lefty bat, 22 home runs, 35 steals, a 182 ISO, 113 WRC plus. Loving playing in Yankee Stadium. His first Red Sox series in the stadium. I think he's going to be keyed in today. Should be fun to watch. That said, you never know what the DFS results are going to look like. But for the money, that's not a bad buy at third base, and it's an outstanding buy if you put him at second base, if you're going away from Glaber, if you've got more money to spend. Dominguez, 3,500, 2,500. 11 plate appearances, hasn't really gotten it going yet this season, but we saw how quick he could roar last season with the 4 home runs and the 30-whatever plate appearances, and he's just got a ton of track record at this point of being an outstanding prospect coming up through the minors. So looks good for the money to me. Very cheap on FanDuel. 35 on DraftKings is very cheap as well. Rizzo for 34-26. I continue to be a believer in him as well. Lefty bat, still low strikeout. Just give me the lefty bat on ball, especially in Yankee Stadium. I'll take the upside from a guy who year after year after year was a 30 home run hitter. I don't think he's completely dead. I think he's still maybe suffering lingering concussion. Maybe it's just that he missed a big chunk of this season with a different injury. The timing isn't there, and it has looked ugly at the plate. But a cheap lefty bat just to plug in at first base can do wonders in Yankee Stadium. And then Volpe, 39-29, always playable. 11 home runs, 26 steals. Not a good season. Not a terrible season. A little bit of counting stat upside, and he's not expensive. Definitely not the best shortstop option, though. Yankees bats, Red Sox bats, Nestor, Criswell. And Criswell's really not on the board. Nestor is on the board. Nestor could easily have a successful day against the struggling lefties in that Red Sox lineup. But Red Sox not completely out of it yet either. They're still in the mix for the wild card. I think they're 4 back of the wild card with 14 to play or something like that. So still in the mix. They're definitely going to be engaged in this game. They're going to want to win it. Oh, great. Tariq Skubal. Did Skubal come out of his game? Yahoo just let me know that they changed Skubal's status the day today. That's not going to be good for business. Malik Neighbors is also questionable now? Fantastic. Decided he already doesn't want to play with Daniel Jones. I don't know if anybody saw it, but if you're a Giants fan, you can't be happy about Neighbors' post-game comments. They were asking him, did you expect to get the ball more? And it's just 1,000-yard stare, just I expected a lot of better things to be happening. It's just wow. This is not going to go well. Power's here. What's going on, Power? Tizzleman's here. Tiz is going right to Reffy. I like it. Don't forget Romy, though. I'm telling you. Get them both. Tizzle saying Romy's 4 for 5, 2 doubles, a single, and a homer versus Cortez. There you go. We don't care about BVP at all, but Romy's just good against lefties. A lot of support for that idea. So BVP doesn't matter. We don't want to be diving into that, but does support the idea that Romy's just good against lefties, and those are appropriate kind of numbers. So, very, very good pitching matchup here. I like this one a lot. I like both pitching options for DFS. I think Gavin Williams at 74-75 against a Rays team with a projected lineup at 24.6% strikeouts on the season is an outstanding option. See if we got the Rays confirmed in. We do. Somebody in the chat just said hi to Joker, and he just wandered in, so must have heard you. All right, Rays lineup is Chris Morel in the leadoff spot. That's a decision. Lau, Caminero, Yandy, cleanup, Josh Lowe, Caballero. So completely different. Luca and okay. Lead off Chris Morel. Yeah, that's a decision, all right. He's slashing 196, 293, 356 on the season. He's got an 86 WRC plus. He has hit 21 home runs, so you're at least giving a power bat a little bit of additional opportunity. But that is a very weird fit in the leadoff role. He does have a 10.4% walk, I guess, but not like it results in a lot of on base. Last year, 313 on base. The year before, 308. Yeah, weird choice. 25.9% strikeouts. Gav comes in with a 24.2% strikeout rate over his 13 outings, his 60 innings this season. 5.25 ERA, but a nice 4.14 xFIP underneath it. It shows a little bit of the quality difference. Going into last year, one of the most highly touted pitching prospects in baseball. Had a decent season. Came up for a cup of coffee toward the end of last year. And had some okay numbers, some okay outings. Took an injury, missed a big chunk of this year, but pitching well. And now that we're combining, basically almost a complete season here, not bad numbers in the show. Last year, 3.29 ERA, 4.54 xFIP. So call him around a 4 ERA, a 4 runs kind of a pitcher right now. Solid 24-ish% strikeout rate across the full sample. The walks are too high, 9.8 this year, 10.7 last year. The whip is too high because of that. Decent swinging strike numbers, though. It's down a little bit this year in the shorter sample. It was stronger last year before the injury. So is the CSW. But he's still getting it done. Limited home run output in both seasons. 2.32 last year, 2.27 this year, despite some premium contact, despite a medium launch angle. He's been good at missing barrels, been good at avoiding the home run output. Whether that's an attribute, whether it's sustained long term, we're not sure. But at least it's a positive indicator that, maybe against the scuffling Rays team, even their power bat's not really showing that much. And there's a little bit of support there in what he's done so far, again, over almost a complete season. So for the money, I think there's major upside in Gav Williams. I think he's probably going to be popular for that. People know to target the Rays at this point this season. On the other side, though, Pepio at 83-85. 25.3% strikeout rate for him on 12.3% swinging at 28.9% CSW for the season. 3.66 ERA with a tidy 4.18 xFIP underneath it, not really betraying it too much. The walks for him is a little bit too high as well at 8.6%, but manageable. 3.43% home runs on not bad numbers for contact either. The barrels are a little higher than we'd want, but 37.1% hard hits, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo. He is a fly ball pitcher, so he's lost a few along the way, but this is non-tragic. Goes well with those numbers and stuff. Plus, obviously, really likes the arsenal. He's got some outstanding pitches. Really, I'm a fan of Pepio here, and I like him for the money. And I think maybe the popularity gets a little diminished because people know not to necessarily target the Guardians. That's the one flaw here. 18.7% strikeout rate for this confirmed version of the Guardians lineup. He's going to have to go find him. He's going to have to get these mid-lineup guys a couple of times each. your Lane Thomases, your Kyle Monsatos, your Bo Nailers of the world. No big Christmas in the lineup, so there's one power bat removed at least, one threat removed, but that was also a strikeout target. So he's going to have his work cut out for him to pay off those prices, but he's capable of doing it. I believe in the median projections. I think he's got ceiling on top of that, and I think he goes lower owned compared to Gav, compared to Bryce Miller off the top of the board. Definitely would want to hedge a little bit of Pepio with some Guardian stacks, though. You don't have to grab too many because he is good enough to justify just full faith. But it probably would be a good idea to hedge some if you're building a lot of lineups. And the Guardians are very good, so there's justification there. Two guys above the magic number are the obvious guys in the home run model, 13.78 for Jose Ramirez, 11.86 for Josh Naylor. But they've got some other very compelling bats up and down that lineup, even without Noel in the lineup. But starting on the Rays side, Chris Morel, again, weird decision in the leadoff spot. Does hit the ball hard, does draw some walks, so giving him a few extra plate appearances, I guess, is the idea here, but needs to get on base better to support that role. Either way, though, 4,100, 2,800 at second base, third base eligible in addition to that on FanDuel. He does have 21 home runs, just a 160 ISO, but a 10.8% barrel. Last year it was 15.5% barrels and 50% hard hits. That guy shows up for a night, we could get a lot of upside out of that spot for the money at second base. So if you're stacking up Rays, he's definitely in the mix. And I do think it's the same for Gav. If you take a position with Gavin Williams, you should probably hedge with some Rays bats in other lineups. And they're very cheap. They're easy enough to stack. So Morel becomes a part of that by virtue of the lineup spot and his any given slate power upside. Brandon Lau has true power upside. 12.6% barrels, 46.5% hard hits. He's hit 17 home runs. He's got a 235 ISO on the season. Just another very strong year, over 362 plate appearances from the second baseman. And he's affordable. 49.32 is not bad pricing for him against, again, an inexperienced lefty who does give up a lot of hard hit balls. It's just not a lot of home runs so far. Junior Caminero, a major prospect in the line of how Gavin Williams is a major pitching prospect. So far, over 116 plate appearances, 3 home runs, a 135 ISO, 104 WRC+. He's been all right. What you can focus on is the 48.1% hard hits so far, just 21.6% strikeouts, 9.5% walks. Not bad at all to get started. Johnny Diaz up to 281, 338, 416 on the season, 14 homers, a 119 WRC+. He's been all right, but not the version of this player that we've seen over the last few years. Diminished in basically every capacity, but the numbers overall, or just take the name off the slot there, and those are good numbers on their own for a $3,100 first baseman, a $4,800 first baseman. So just continue to plug John D into stacks of Rays when you go there. Josh Lowe for 49, 3,000, 9 home runs, 23 steals in kind of a lousy season for him. The numbers are hovering around the average for run creation, just 2 points below, 159 ISO, just moderate. 10.3% barrels and 45.3% hard hits is decent. And he does have upside based on the production from last year. You'd like to see the strikeouts normalize back to last year's 24.8%, if not lower. 30.6% is aggressively high for a hitter of that nature, so that hurts him a lot. But for DFS, 49, 3,000, not a bad price for the ceiling on the right day. So you definitely can get to some of the lefty, Josh Lowe in the lineup, and both him and Lau are fairly high priority bats within that stack. I'd say it's the two of them, Yandy and Caminero, and then pick your last guy. By the way, my buddy Charlie put in my head last night for the rest of his career now, whenever I see his name, he was watching the Phillies-Rays game because he's a big Phillies fan, and he started doing the Canyonero from The Simpsons. Canyonero with the truck and everything. It was a stupid commercial parody. So now every time I see Canyonero, that's just going to be in my head. So just know that. Jose Caballero down the lineup, 4,200, 2,700, mix and match quality at multiple infield positions. 39 steals is nice, but the 288 on base just completely hamstrings the upside there. 87 WRC+. He's hit 9 home runs, meh. Jonathan Aranda, 21, 22 across sites. Hasn't really done anything with his 85 plate appearances this year. Didn't really do anything that I remember last year in 103. 2 home runs, a 102 WRC+, I guess. He was all right. Mix and match for very cheap at best. Johnny DeLuca for 31, 26 has 6 home runs and 16 steals. A very bad on-base percentage. 21 points below average for run creation. And then Ben Rortvet's just kind of a backup catcher. So this lineup really dies on the vine around Caballero. You can maybe get a little out of him, but I don't love the bottom 3. I think they're very targetable with Gavin Williams shares on the mound. I really, really do. Then on this side, Stephen Kwan, great table setter, 361 on base, 125 WRC plus on the season. Hit for a little bit of odd power earlier in the year, 13 home runs. He rushed out of the gate with a bunch of home runs, but wasn't exactly like a changed hitter. There was nothing about his profile that suggested he had suddenly become a home run hitter, just some weird results. So you ignore the home runs, but the steals are nice. And, to add a little bit of fantasy padding, it's not great output for steals. For a guy like this, you'd like to see him steal more bases up top. But he's a very good correlated scoring option. He's difficult to skip in stacks because he's always affordable and he's always involved. Andres Jimenez at 44-31, 8 home runs, 28 steals, 85 WRC plus, kind of a mediocre season from a kid with a lot of skills. What you like there is low strikeout, low walk. You just wish he hit the ball a little bit harder. He'd see a lot better results. Jose Ramirez is a superstar at 63-43, 34 homers, 38 steals. No real reason to spend time on that. You just plug him into your lineups. Josh Naylor is very cheap at 4,700 for his upside. 36 on FanDuel at first base is correct for Josh Naylor. 47 is way too cheap. 29 home runs this year at 220 ISO, 119 WRC plus. 17 home runs while slashing 308, 354, 489 last year. He's a very, very good hitter who's taken another step forward for power this year. Lane Thomas at 42-31. Mediocre year this year, but he's up to 11 homers and 32 steals. He's up to a 102 WRC plus. The numbers are kind of normalizing and coming around. Last year, 28 homers, 20 steals, and 682 plate appearances, a 201 ISO. It was tremendous last year. Now he's just affordable. 4,200 is very cheap for Lane Thomas's production. Even for this year, that's not a completely terrible price. 3,100 on FanDuel is a little bit low. It's a good player for the money. Kyle Manzardo, 27-25. Hasn't done much in the show, but a high-profile prospect for them. Just keep on giving him chances at cheap prices. You're going to get some production out of the lefty at some point. There is power upside there for sure. Hasn't really hit the ball all that hard in the show. 10% barrels is good, but 37.5% hard hits is just average. A lot of strikeouts and hasn't really drawn any walks yet. But again, just cheap option at first base. It's a blocker to Josh Naylor on DK. You can get them both on FanDuel. As a discount, just as a pure pivot, I like the talent, but I don't love the lack of any kind of real production so far. So it's a little bit limited, but the kid is supposed to be good. So I think you can do it. It wouldn't be my advised approach. Will Brennan, 31-24, 8 home runs, just a mix and match quality outfielder, just another outfielder at those prices. Bo Naylor, pretty low end catcher, 12 home runs is all right, 159 ISO, 80 WRC plus. And then Brian Rocchio rarely gets involved, 8 homers, 10 steals, 81 WRC plus, just a defender. Got to go Gav up top. Gav Pepio. Is that how the board goes, though? I think it's the other way around, right? They're close enough. I want to put Gavin Williams on top because it's the better matchup. So that's what I'm going to do. And then followed immediately by Ryan Pepio. And then it's Guardians bats over Rays bats. Limited in terms of how playable the stacks are. I really do like both of these young pitchers. Rangers Mariners, another potentially really good matchup of young pitchers. I know one of these guys is really, really good. I expect Kumar Rocker is going to be pretty good. But we haven't seen him yet. Not in the show, anyway. Let's see if we got these lineups. Nope. So, Rocker sliding in at pretty aggressive prices, in my opinion. Not really wild about the option in his debut. Pitching this year, Double-A. 5 starts, 19 2/3. Just a .46 ERA with a 1.76 xFIP. That's pretty outstanding. Moved up to AAA, made 2 starts, 10 innings. A 1.80 ERA with a 1.44 xFIP. Struck out 40.8% with a 4.2% walk rate in the tiny Double-A sample. And then 51.4% with a 2.9% walk rate in the AAA sample this year. You go back to last year at high A, he made 6 starts, 28 innings, 3.86 ERA, 2.44 xFIP, struck out 37.8%, walked 6.3%. Former number 3 overall pick, ranked 8th organizationally, mid-90s in most cases in full league prospect ranking, so is a top 100 prospect. Obviously, there's strikeout upside. Coming in against the Mariners team that has been flailing at the plate by and large this season with a 24.6% strikeout rate for this this projected version of the Mariners lineup. I just don't love the 9,000, 8,500. I think he's got the potential to be good, but I'd really like an opportunity to see it before we just rocket him to the top of the price board. He's not coming in with that kind of a profile. You know, he's not Paul Skeens. What else can we say about him? I don't even know. I just really don't get how they landed at those prices. Outside of, I guess, maybe the matchup? Let's see. Per our guys over at CBS.com, 5 things you should know about Rangers right-hander, including his unusual path to the majors. Yeah, he was drafted, went back, redrafted, kind of a thing. Let's see what those 5 things CBS wants you guys to know are. A storied career at Vandy. Yes, that's true. 2.89 ERA, 4.72 strikeout to walk rate, struck out more than 33% of batters in college. Nobody cares. Originally drafted by the Mets. That was, yeah, we knew that. Didn't come to contract. Redrafted after going to the Indy League. That's right. I forgot about the Indy League stint. That was the Frontier League. Those are meaningless appearances, though. We won't talk about stats. Then he was injured and showed an electric arsenal to his return. So absolutely nothing of note outside of the fact that he played indie ball in between there, which I completely forgotten about, but who cares? No new additional stats to put on, no actual relevant information. There's clearly upside. I'm not saying the kid can't come out, strike out 10 in his debut. He does profile as a very high-end strikeout pitcher. But, I mean, even against this Mariners team, I don't know that you're remotely safe at those numbers. I don't have him profiled anywhere near there. What the innings look like? He's completed the 5th inning twice this year. He's pitched into the 5th inning 3 times. Came in his last 3 outings. 4 2/3 against the Padres AA affiliate. He struck out 8, 3 hits, no runs. 5 innings against the Dodgers AAA affiliate. I believe that's Oklahoma Baseball Club. Struck out 10, 1 hitter, over 5 innings, no runs. Gave up 2 earned on 3 hits in 5 innings against Oakland's AAA affiliate. Struck out 8, allowed a home run. I don't see him getting more than 5 innings here. Even if all goes to plan. Given the total lack of depth, given the injury history, he's precious here. If he gives him 5 clean, good innings, even if he's got, even if he's rolling, got like 8 strikeouts, and especially if he's racking up strikeouts, he's going to use pitches. It's paper thin at 85 on DK because you only need the 5 and the win. I don't think you go there at 9,000 on FanDuel. I really don't. It's challenging at these prices. Kid's going to be good, but I don't know. Great opportunity, though, to succeed against this team in his debut. No doubt about that. Bryce Miller, 92-10-3, has a 23.8% strikeout rate, a great 3.18 ERA, a pretty good 3.90 xFIP underneath it. It does defy that a little bit, but it's still manageable. It's still sub 4, so perfectly fine. Sub 1 whip, an 11% swinging strike rate. He's allowed some premium contact. He's allowed a pretty significant barrel rate, a pretty significant launch angle, 41.2. We're over the line there, and there, but only 3.15% home runs. So we have probably gotten a little lucky in the home run department this year. Last year it was the same thing, though. 3.35% home runs on basically identical kind of contact. So it might just be a pitcher that gets away with it, just manages to continue turning that card over, somehow. I'm not sure. I can't quantify it. I can't put my finger on it, but some guys are able to do that despite allowing a little bit and a significant launch angle, still manage to work their way through the contact and be okay with home runs. In every other department, he's really good. He's low walk, he's high strikeout or medium high strikeout, like exactly the mold that the Mariners like. So really like the option. Going up against a scuffling Rangers team with a 21.3% projected strikeout rate for this lineup. There are hitters to fear in this lineup. Marcus Semien still one of them. Adolis Garcia still one of them, despite underperformances from both those guys this season. Josh Smith is decent. Wyatt Langford's a decent rookie. Nathaniel Lowe's good. Josh Young is pretty good. So not a pushover opportunity like the Mariners might be, but definitely a gettable team this year. So I like the upside for Miller from the top of the board at these prices, 92, 10, 3. Maybe he gets a little bit underowned by comparison to some of the cheaper guys as far as like where he should be, where he stacks up on the slate. Because to me, top option. If you're stacking up Rangers against, I don't really see a need to hedge in any big way. It's a short slate, so you just naturally would probably fall into some shares of Rangers anyway. But it's not a key, spot that you have to hedge. Miller's good enough to get through this team, no problem. But they are playable on their own just as an angle into the slate. They'll be low owned for the matchup against Miller. Marcus Semien at 47-34 has 20 home runs, a 152 ISO, and 97 WRC plus, in what is just undeniably a disappointing season. The contact profile is still there. The strikeouts, the walks are still right where they're supposed to be. There's not much different. It's just been poor results this year. So I think it's not a situation where the player's necessarily diminished. It's just outcomes have worked against him all season long. So any given slate upside still there. He's cheaper than he should be, given the talent and the not necessarily discernible diminishment. So you continue to go to Marcus Semien as a priority bat if you're stacking Rangers. Josh Smith, 39, 3,000. We're down to 350 on base, 265 average, a 118 WRC plus. The ISO's dipped to 141. We're plummeting fast. Josh Smith needs to land the plane for this season to keep the numbers looking pretty decent. It was predictable. We were hoping it wouldn't happen. He'd continue to get on base, but that's definitely slipped as well. He's affordable. You can stick him into lineups, especially hitting second. He's still kind of a priority bat for the correlated scoring ability, but it hasn't been great second half. Wyatt Langford at 41-31, playable, mix and match quality, but kind of just another outfielder despite the good lineup spot. 10 home runs, 14 steals, and 98 WRC plus. There hasn't been much special about him this year. The 8.5% barrels and 44% hard hits, maybe, if you need something. But he's just been okay. Adolis Garcia has also just been okay at best. 87 WRC plus, really disappointing. 173 ISO, really disappointing. 22 homers and 11 steals, pretty bad for the output that we expect from this player. That does come on 12.8% barrels and 48% hard hits. The home run output has been disappointing even for the contact that he's making. Not that a 22 and 11 season is completely awful, but for the numbers that we expect from Adolis Garcia as one of the top power bats in the league, that's a really bad season. Nathaniel Lowe, 35-27, 12 home runs on the year in 499 chances, still getting on base at a 361 clip, still a dynamite correlated scoring option, should probably move up the lineup to where Josh Smith is, because Nathaniel Lowe's on base percentage is very real, where Josh Smith is probably still a little bit of an illusion. Josh Young, decent power bat later in the lineup. He's got 6 homers, a 157 ISO, a 109 WRC plus. The ISO's a little bit down still over his 168 plate appearances, but he is hitting the ball hard. 10.3% barrels, 42.7% hard hits. Definitely belongs in stacks of Rangers if you're going there. Jonah Heim, Ezekiel Duran, Leody Taveras at the bottom of the lineup, all mix and match quality. Heim can give you any given slate upside from the catcher spot. He's got 12 home runs, but is mediocre at best otherwise. And then just mix and match caliber from Jonah Taveras for a little bit of counting stat upside. Duran really hasn't been that player in his limited chances this year. Taveras has been closer to the guy that he was last year, but still way off the mark and kind of disappointing. So limited options in the bottom 3 spots for this projected Rangers lineup. Victor Robles from the top of the board, 3,600, 2,800. Not a bad 241 plate appearances. We talked about him again yesterday, referred back to when we first started talking about him and the fact that he was once upon a time top 5 prospect in all of baseball with a really good profile. Kind of delivering on his talents in his age 27 season in a half of a chance here. 290, 369, 415. He's stolen 24 bags. Great spot in the lineup for a cheap price against a rookie making his debut. I kind of like the upside. It's not bad. It's probably a little sneaky. 131 WRC plus to lead this team. Not a bad option. You can fill up the outfield pretty quickly, but then that means you're not stacking Mariners value with like Yankees You're limited on which Red Sox you're going to if you're grabbing outfielders from this team. So bear in mind, they might be cheap and they might be facing a rookie on the Mariners side while showing a little bit of power potential. But there's positional conflict with a lot of the key teams that we would want to stack these cheap guys with. So they're not necessarily a great fit. Once you get into the infielders, you're dealing with the bottom of the lineup and Turner, Polanco, limited J.P. Crawford. So I don't love the fit for the Mariners as a value stack outside of them being cheap. But Julio's inexpensive for his talent, 45.32. In line, if not maybe a little bit pricey on FanDuel for the limited potential or the limited output this year. 14 homers, 21 steals, 102 WRC plus, puts him 2 points above average, but very limited for who we expect Julio to be and who we've seen him be over the last 2 years. Cal Raleigh has 30 home runs, very cheap catcher option with a lot of power at 44.33, 218 ISO, 113 WRC plus, best power bat on the team, 15.8% barrels, 49.1% hard hits. Throw the switch hitting catcher against the rookie and see what happens. I like the power upside, 11.89 in the home run model today. Arena, another player having a down season, 219, 329, 394, 113 WRC plus. The good walk rate, the good on base percentage keeps him alive. He is going to have a 2020 season, 19 homers and 20 steals, but the numbers overall haven't been where we expect them for him either. Luke Raley at 38, 3,000, totally playable, 19 homers, 9 steals, a 215 ISO, having a decent season over 407. Not outstanding in anything, but has a little bit of lefty power, squares the ball up at a decent clip, 10.7% barrels, 41.4% hard hits. A lot of strikeouts, limited walk rate, but a playable piece. Turner, 2,925, you're just buying walk rate correlated scoring with a low strikeout, high walk option. Jorge Polanco, 14 home runs on the year and a disappointing non-bounce back of a season, also striking out 30% of the time. Really limited mix and match second baseman at the bottom of the lineup. Crawford's having a really disappointing year. We're down 75 points of on-base percentage. He's hovering around at the Mendoza line. 9 home runs and 387 chances. Really bad season out of him after a good year last year. And then Josh Rojas, 28-25, mix and match quality at the absolute best. So it probably is Bryce Miller, Kumar Rocker, but I really question Rocker's value at those prices, given that it's probably 5 innings at best. And then bats-wise, I would probably go Mariners over Rangers just for the opportunity to grab some cheap bats against Kumar Rocker, but I don't love how the positional fits would work with the Mariners. Last game up. Hayden Birdsong, we talked about briefly earlier in the week, but then he scratched. Baker projecting lower this week in the model. We'll talk about him a little bit later on tonight when we talk about some quarterbacks. If you weren't here for the beginning of the show, 6:30 or so, you'll see it pop up on YouTube in a little bit when I get it scheduled. But after this, coming back around 6:30 to talk about the single game Miami and Buffalo tonight. Or Buffalo in Miami, rather. And then we will either parlay that directly into a quarterbacks and rankings kind of a show, talk about game situations and so on, or I'll take like an hour break in between, and like 8:30 we'll come back and we'll do that show during the Buffalo Miami game. So it should be a fun night of discussing football, and come on back for that. But yeah, Baker a little bit lower end than he was last week. We obviously loved him last week. He was our go-to value play, and it came through in a big way. Got some other guys in mind maybe this week, but I think he's going to be playable at worst all season. Just really benefited last week in the numbers and everything, and my expectations from the matchup against Washington, who we're going to be picking on that Washington secondary with quarterbacks like we pick on the Mariners with pitchers all season. Maybe a little bit of a foreshadowing to who might be a decent quarterback this week. Herb Street was talking about a dew point on McCaffrey. Apparently in the 70s. Hot, heavy, thick air tonight. Buffalo could struggle second half. We're not going to get into dew point on my show later on. But that's it's always something. Last game up here, a very mediocre Frankie Montas with a 4.69 ERA, a 4.41 xFIP, nearly a 10% walk rate. Very limited for strikeouts at 20.9% this year. Throwing a decent swinging strike rate, inducing one, 10.5%, but not really throwing that many strikes with a 24.7% CSW. Giving up too many hard hits, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo. It's not a tragic launch angle, not a bad barrel rate against. 3.13% home runs is entirely realistic. Just below league average by stuff plus, but at best, he's just an average, 4 or 5 kind of a starter this late into his career. He's just been mediocre for most of his career, with a few brief upticks and bright spots, one of which got him traded to the Yankees and was obviously a disaster there. Maybe I'm a little bitter. But I don't love Frankie Montas. I do like the upside for some Giants bats, maybe as a sneakier stack. Some Lamont Wade, some Matt Chapman, some Tyler Fitz at shortstop, in addition to the outfielders, Mike Yastrzemski, Elliot Ramos, Michael Conforto. A lot of interesting ways you can put this team together with some of the other options on the slate. So I think these guys play a little bit better for value, maybe, in a targetable spot than the Mariners might. And Montas is at least as targetable as the rookie probably is. There are definitely strikeouts here for Montas, though. 27.4% strikeout rate. I think that's, this is the one you guys. 27.4% strikeout rate. So definitely some Ks available. Wouldn't totally stun me if Montas had an okay day for those prices. So if you're stacking up in this one, you can definitely grab Giants bats, but it's both sided. You can take some value out of Frankie Montas and roll the dice. I just really have no faith. Not one of the top projected options on the board, but there are Ks available for him on the right day. It just hasn't been great at finding him this year. Birdsong for 63.77 has been kind of problematic. You can see the good in there. The 27.5% strikeout rate is pretty outstanding over his first 52 innings, his first 12 starts in the show. But there's been a lot of downside with it. It's come with a lot of earned runs, for one thing. 5.19 ERA with a 4.54 xFIP underneath it. Not that big of a difference between those. Those are both pretty bad numbers. He's given up a 4.29% home run on a lot of barrels, way over the line on hard hits, way over the line on exit velo on a fly ball trajectory. So a lot of problems in terms of the premium contact result in a realistic 4.29% home run rate against, if not a little bit low. That could easily be 5+. Way too many guys on base so far. Is good at inducing swinging strikes. Has what he calls a spike change that is a very, very effective pitch at inducing swinging strikes. Just needs to put the full works together and really hasn't done so far. He's also been short-started in a couple of spots. Just 3 innings last time out. Struck out 4 but walked 5. 2 earned runs, 3 hits. 3 2/3 the start before that. 5 earned runs on 4 hits. Struck out 6 but walked 4. Struck out 5 but walked 4 the start before that. Just went 4 innings despite only giving up 1 hit and no runs to Seattle because that's just wild inefficiency. So a lot of problems around premium contact and power. A lot of problems around free passes at 15% walks so far. That equals a lot of struggles against a team that has a collective 9.9% walk rate for that projected lineup with multiple guys in the double-digit walk rate territory. A lot of good run creators in that Brewers lineup. I could see it being another problematic day for Birdie here. I like the pitcher, but I don't love the spot. I think he needs a little bit more seasoning to develop the full arsenal and develop a little bit more command so that he's able to limit some of those walks. 63.77, you can roll the dice on the strikeout upside. There are Ks in that Brewers lineup. This projected version, 23.2%, but I'm more worried about the walks and the downside for Birdsong here than I am enthused about the upside. So probably targeting more Brewers bats in that head-to-head, probably going away from Birdsong value. But it is there. It is realistic in terms of 6,300. There are some Ks to chase, but definitely a shaky platform on which to build your house. That didn't really work. Kind of a shaky foundation on which to build your house. Kind of a shaky platform on which to put your ladder to try and climb up the building. I don't know. What do you do on a platform? Kind of a shaky platform on which to build your campaign. There you go. Jackson Churio, top of the board, 4,400, 3,300. Not bad for a kid hitting 272, 326, 461 as like an infant in Major League Baseball. 19 home runs and 20 steals, a 189 ISO, a 117 WRC+. He's had an outstanding rookie season, and there is a lot more to come from that player. And he just continues to push his way up in the contact department. Since the All-Star break, he just keeps on climbing and climbing over here. We're up to 7.5% barrels and 44.8% hard hits. He doesn't really strike out. 20.8% strikeout rate is terrific. He needs to push the walks up a little bit to gain more value for stolen bases in the on-base department, and that'll create more runs, and it'll be even better over here. But overall, way too cheap, way too talented. Garrett Mitchell at 3,000, 2,400, 5 homers, 7 steals, and 174 plate appearances. He is a positive run creator. He's hitting the ball pretty hard. Actually, the hard hit rate, the barrels are mediocre, right around average. But the ISO, the results have been good, 188 ISO. William Contreras for 5,000, 3,400, a very playable catcher, 281, 360, 466, 21 home runs. One of the most productive catchers in baseball, hits third basically every day. about 600 cheaper than where they've been pricing Adley Rutschman, is very compelling. 130 WRC plus, a 185 ISO this year. Jake Bauers, 32.26, has 11 homers and 11 steals. Sub Mendoza, 303 on base, just a 366 slug. Pretty mediocre season out of Bauers, but he is capable of putting bat on ball. 10.5% barrels, 42% hard hits from the left side. Strikes out a ton, draws some walks. Playable, but not great, not ideal. Kind of just filling a spot for this team. Willy Adames at 47.37 is not nearly expensive enough on a short slate on DraftKings. With limited shortstop options today, he's absolutely fantastic at 4,700. 30 home runs, 18 steals, a 216 ISO, a 121 WRC plus. He's by far the best shortstop, right? Tyler Fitz has been good in a limited sample, but I need to see it more from Fitz. Seager's not in the game. He's better than Crawford. He's better than anybody on the Rays, better than anybody on the Guardians, better than anybody on the Red Sox, better than Volpe, better than anybody on the Marlins. It's C.J. Abrams and Willy Adames are your top two shortstops of the day. Kind of love the idea of getting them both. If you're on FanDuel, Brewers against Birdsong, Nationals against whoever that guy is from the Marlins. Two fairly high-end teams today. The Brewers are sneaky. Again, this 398 total compared to the rest of the season looks low, but compared to this slate, that's the fourth highest total out of the 10 teams. And again, it's a team with a bunch of walk rate in it, facing a guy with a 15% walk rate. A lot of run problems, a lot of hard hit problems. These guys have a lot of ability to hit the ball hard. It's kind of interesting. And I like the idea of taking both of the super high end or higher end shortstops off this slate in getting Willie at shortstop and then just plug Abrams into, or the other way around, into the utility. You can't do that on DK, but on FanDuel you have that option and it makes your lineup a little bit more unique potentially. Both those players will be popular, but I don't know that they'll be popular together in lineups, which makes it interesting. Sal Frelick, 28-24, 16 stolen bases, a mix and match quality outfielder. Blake Perkins, same thing at 25-27. He's stolen 20 bags, hit 6 home runs, 91 WRC plus for him, 90 WRC plus for Sal. You want one of them, not both of them, if you're stacking this team up. And either way, they're also skippable. It's just if you need to get cheap in the outfield down there. Also, again, outfielders are positional blockers for some premium players from some of the top-ranked stacks. Joey Ortiz, Bryce Turang at the bottom of the lineup. Both guys are capable. 109 WRC plus out of Ortiz. He's having the better season. 10 home runs, 9 steals. The best individual attribute, though, is Turang's speed. 41 stolen bases on the year, but an 89 WRC plus, just a 102 ISO. Just kind of a moderate contributor this season, but playable from the bottom. And then on the Giants side, I referred to it before, but again, you have a couple decent home run hitting lefties in Yaz and Conforto. Both guys hitting the ball very hard, 40+% hard hits, hovering around or above 10% barrels. 15 home runs for Yaz, 16 for Conforto from the left side. Both guys over 200 ISOs. Both guys positive run creators on the season. Not bad, and in limited, sub 500 plate appearances. You give these guys 550, 600, they'll probably get into the 20 home run range. In between the two, the righty Elliot Ramos for just 4,000, 3,100. That is a very cheap trio of power bats off the top. He's got 20 home runs in his 455 chances, a 202 ISO for him. So that's 3 bats off the top, and you can make it 4 if you include Matt Chapman. 4 guys in a row with 200-plus ISOs going up against Frankie Montas. Kind of interesting. Chapman's got 24 homers and 15 steals this year, creating runs 21% better than average. Outside of the strikeouts, I'm telling you, this Giants lineup is not that bad. A lot of positive run creators, a lot of mid-grade type power bats. Got a guy having a tremendous start to his career, over 293 plate appearances from Tyler Fitz, 297, 352, 532. He's hit 14 home runs and stolen 17 bases. A dynamite alternative at worst at shortstop. You can plug him into that equation if you wanted to get really funky at second base on FanDuel and go primo shortstop, C.J. Abrams, primo shortstop, and then the third best shortstop, but you're playing him at second base. That said, you're getting to 3 different teams there with your bats instead of just 2. But if you're one-offing a guy, that's not the worst consideration. Taking the Tyler Fitz upside at second base. I actually kind of like that. Patty Bailey, Grant McCray, Marco Luciano. And these are the things you want to think about if you're hand building on a short slate. You want to think about, alternatives to get different, alternatives to kind of defy the way an optimizer or just a normal human being would put this lineup together. And I think that's one of them. Patty Bailey, Grant McRae, and Marco Luciano. Luciano's a decent prospect down the bottom. Hasn't really done anything in his 68 plate appearances yet. McRae hasn't done much outside of 5 home runs in 81 plate appearances and a 256 ISO, 105 WRC plus. Not bad. The 231, 259 needs to improve in the slash line, but he's made very good contact for a cheap price. Just occupying outfield with him. Probably just more along the lines of just another outfielder, and there are a ton of strikeouts so far. That's about it. Patty Bailey's a mix and match catcher. Tyler Johnson will have the best game for value per Mamba. Cup is a target hog. Yeah, Cup's going to have a big week. Don't sleep on DeMarcus, though. Popular pickup this week. But he had a big last couple of weeks last year. You can definitely draw some targets. Capable enough guy. Anyway, let's break this down one last time. Then I'm going to punch out, update some stuff, and get the football board in order. And we will be back probably 6:30-ish for football show. Bryce Miller, top of the board, 10-3, 9,200. No problem with going to that, even against a mediocre Rangers lineup that does have some talented guys in it, and they're all underperforming. I have no issues going to Miller at a very high price, but you've got a lot of options. Pepio at mid-board prices, 85, 83, looks like a dynamite option against even a low strikeout, high-quality Cleveland lineup. He's a talented enough guy to beat that team. On the other side, you pick up a little bit more value, lower pricing for Gavin Williams, equally talented pitcher, if not a little bit better. High strikeout guy against a high strikeout lineup should be a really good spot for him. Needs to get through some of the power bats safely, but definitely some compelling potential for the low prices and your top SP2 option. That said, 6,800 for Mitchell Parker, 2 spots later as an SP2 option on DK. Not a bad option at all against Miami. He's been high-end enough throughout the season and had his moments throughout the season where I think you can go there. 81 on FanDuel. Considering I've got these 2 options here, I don't love Frankie Montas all that much better, but I would probably consider some Montas, given the strikeout upside, at least like equal shares here. Much as I don't love Montas, much as I think that the Giants' power probably gets him, there are Ks there. So probably that's an even up distribution between those 2 guys on FanDuel. A lot less so on DK, where Montas is 79 versus 68 for Parker. That dramatically favors Parker. Birdsong, I really have a difficult time trusting against that Milwaukee lineup, given all the walks and all the quality that they've got and what they do well. I think he's playable. It's really probably limited shares of darts at 63 on DK and a couple at 77 on FanDuel, but it's a little rough. Rocker, I'm really curious to see what the results look like. I'm going to try and watch this start. 9,000, 8,500. I have a hard time paying those prices for a kid in his debut, good as he might be, high strikeout opportunity as that might be. Maybe it wins. Maybe he gets there. Maybe I'm wrong, but seems like a high price to pay to find out. Criswell against the Yankees is a really rough spot. We have seen pitchers of his nature beat the Yankees time and time again. You could roll the dice a little bit, but high danger spot in Yankee Stadium against that lineup. And then Darren McCockran at the end of the night here. McCockran, whatever it is, against Washington. Low strikeout Washington team showing a lot of power, and he's not shown much quality in limited samples. Don't really like it. Think we take Nationals bats. Love the upside there. CJ was the home run pick of the day. Not much changed about that right there. To illustrate that advantage from those shortstops, though, you grab him. Right? 1, 2. And then there's Tyler Fitz if you wanted to throw that option in at second base. So not bad. It's only 5 games, so a limited number of players over the magic number, but not nothing. Some predictable guys up there, followed by CJ, then Cal Raleigh. Josh Naylor's on that board. Noel's not playing. Soto's playing. Adames. Chapado's an interesting one from the Nats. Don't sleep on him. A lot of power showing for the Nationals. I'm interested in that stack. In addition to CJ is the home run pick of the day. You got Chapado right there. James Wood right there. Luis Garcia Jr. is even showing power. Keibert and Joey Gallo right there. There's a lot of guys in this upper portion of the board from the Nationals today. So kind of liking that spot. That's about it, gang. Let me go get some stuff updated. We'll be back 6:30-ish. Keep an eye on the YouTube notifications. They'll let you know, or just pop into the Discord and I'll let you know. Or keep an eye on the Rotoscouts Twitter handle, and that will let you know. Good luck out there tonight in baseball. Somebody go win something. We'll be back in a little while. See you then.